I slipped a little bit. So there's that. Oh no. Right, go with before the fall. It's Leanne and welcome back to another video. This video really should be titled So a Thing Happened. Allow me to introduce you my mental health for the last couple of months. She works hard for the money. She spends it on books. But instead I have settled on the more traditional title of It's a Book Haul, folks. And let's face it, all of these titles are very applicable to this moment. I saw a meme the other day that was like, when I have a bad day I buy myself nice things. But you know, the baseline of nice things that I need just to feel even a little bit normal is so extraordinarily high that I may never recover from this, and I don't know when it will end. And I felt that in my soul. So in point of fact, we're just going to say my soul needed this stack. And I feel good about it, and you feel good about it. And my 2023 spreadsheet feels a little bit like So I mean, that's all fine then. Let's just have a look, shall we? Let's have a look at what we've bought. First up on this list, we don't just have one book, we have a set of books. And in fact, what we have is the entirety of the Red Rising saga. Well, I mean, this here is not the entirety of the saga, but it's most of it. If you guys have been paying close attention to my last couple of videos, you will see that I have thrown myself bodily into the Red Rising saga. I have just like, bloop, put on that floaty, did a cannonball off that diving board and just kind of hoped for the best. And yeah, girl is obsessed. And not just a little bit obsessed, but like really, really obsessed. Like the kind of obsessed I am with Lockwood & Co. The kind of obsessed I am with Robin Hobb. I am officially 3 books deep into this series, which starts with Red Rising, carries on to Golden Sun, finishes the original trilogy off with Morning Star, and then moves on to Iron Gold and Dark Age, which your girl has been told is very, very dark. Like, if we thought we were depressy spaghetti enough to need to buy all of these books, Dark Age might mean that we have to buy double just to make up for how it makes us feel. I'm excited. And then finally we have Lightbringer, which is just now out in hardback, and I believe there will be one more book after that wherein the full series will be wrapped up. Now this series is entirely Becca's fault. I picked it up on her recommendation. She was like, if you like pain, this is the series for you. And the only way to explain to you how much this series has become part of my personality over the last month or so is to tell you that not only do every one of my patrons know that I am reading this series, but so do all of my friends and family, including the ones who don't read. And I spend most of my days composing lists to Becca of reasons why I want to punch Pierce Brown in the unmentionables. So, what is Red Rising about and why should you pick it up? Red Rising is a futuristic sci-fi series which is set thousands of years in advance of where we are right now, and we follow Darrow, who is a miner under the surface of Mars. Darrow and Darrow's people for generations and generations have been trapped under the surface of Mars, mining a substance called helium-3, which they are told is the only substance that can possibly be used to terraform the surface of Mars. As they travel to and from the mines under the surface, they are shown videos of the way in which Earth is dying and the people on Earth are suffering, and they are told that their sacrifice is the only thing that can save humanity. And then one day Darrow discovers that this is all lies, and in fact the surface of Mars has been terraformed for hundreds and hundreds of years, and not just Mars, but also other moons. And then Darrow, along with some timely placed help, decides that he is going to take down this society from the inside. But as with many rebellions, that doesn't exactly go as planned. This series is one of those series that I say only get into it if you are okay with the potential, nay, the distinct possibility that your absolute favourites will die. That all of the characters that you fall deeply, deeply in love with will be hurt, maimed, and otherwise made to be extremely depressed. There is no one person in any of these books that I am sure is going to get through to the end. And in fact, we've already lost some people along the way that I'm really not okay with. Anyway, yes, this is not really supposed to be a review of this series, but I feel very passionately about it, so here we are. And yes, you can assume that I will be starting Iron Gold very soon. And I'm probably going to buy Lightbringer in hardback, even though I'll then need to repurchase it in paperback so it matches, but so it goes. Now, in a complete departure from buying entire series in one go, I have a single standalone thriller for you. This is The Last Housewives by Ashley Winstead, and if you watched my Dark Academia video, then you will know that In My Dreams I Hold a Knife is on my Dark Academia TBR for like September, November, December. And because In My Dreams I Hold a Knife is on that TBR, you will probably have surmised that that will actually be my first Ashley Winstead book. And so realistically, I shouldn't own this. And the reason I say that is because I have tried in recent years to scale massively back on buying more than one book from an author so that I don't get burned. Thriller authors specifically, but also with horror authors, where I have bought quite a few books from somebody's backlist because they all sound amazing, and then I have discovered that actually they really don't work for me, and that was a huge waste of money. And so the only reason that I have broken my own self-imposed rule for this one is because I actually found it in the works when I was shopping with Amy. We both ended up picking it up because it was incredibly cheap. The Works, in case you didn't know, is a bookstore here in the UK which also sells a bunch of other things like crafty stuff and jigsaws and things like that. And it used to just have like historical romance and contemporary fiction and a lot of like oversold things. You know, where a publisher would have a massive print run done and then they wouldn't sell and the Works would buy up those books. But recently the Works has had a little bit of a shift around and they have been buying up a lot more books that are like TikTok books, or like for example you'll find a lot of Colleen Hoover in there because they're very popular right now. And I think the reason that this one made it into the Works is because it has quite a big typo in the blurb on the back, and I suspect that when the publisher realised there was a typo there were, you know, reprints done, and so the Works have snapped up these copies, which quite frankly, yay for me. I don't really care if there's a typo in the blurb as long as there's not a typo every third word, you know. So this one is about Shay. When she was in college, she and a group of her friends were essentially kind of pulled into a cult. They met a very charismatic man who promised them a lot of things, and then once they were in that cult they realised that there was absolutely no way out. Or at least there weren't for most of her friends, who are still there. But Shay and her friend Lauren managed to escape. And now years and years later, Shay is listening to one of her favourite true crime podcasts when she hears all of a sudden that Laurel has been found murdered. And so Shay, in her absolute shock, reaches out to the podcast host, who is of course very, very happy to hear from somebody who was also in that cult with Laurel. And together they decide that it is time for them to solve this mystery. But the thing that really, really tipped me over to pick this one up was not just the price, it was also the first sentence. Part 1 is called Scheherazade, You Careful Actress, and the first sentence is, "These are the stories I tell you to save my life." And I was like, okay girl, sold. Tell me about the cult. And now I'm kind of stuck because now I'm like, do I read Ashley Winstead in order? Should I read In My Dreams I Hold a Knife first, or should I pick up this one just because it's like right here, like here, and it's calling to me? Ah, the joys of book collecting and the anxiety it brings with it. Also, can I get praised for the fact that I have ADHD hacked myself and I am now putting these books away as I finish talking about them? Like, I'm not just putting them back in a pile, I'm actually just putting them on my shelves. I'd like a wee pat on the head, please, thank you. Next up, I have the only sequel on this list, so I will just run through it very quickly. This is Ravensong by TJ Klune. It is the second book in the Green Creek saga, which is a paranormal werewolf saga with a queer romance in it. And to be fair, I feel like saying it has queer content in it is a bit redundant when it comes to TJ Klune, because of course it does. A fact which makes me unbelievably happy. I saw a quote from Olivia Blake the other day where people were asking her if there was any queer characters in her new book, which was also in this stack. And her response was, "To my knowledge, I don't think I've ever written an entirely straight character." And I just loved that. Like, knowing that there is just casual inclusion of queer characters, like, we exist in the real world. It's just really, really nice to know. Anyway, the Green Creek Saga is actually being republished by Waterstones in these hardback editions because this series was originally published in 2019, and I think it was indie published at the time. The first book is Wolfsong. It is about Ox, who is a teenager when he finds himself completely alone in the world. His mum has died and his dad has abruptly left him, and he then meets the boy next door. Bennett family have just moved in next door, and their youngest son Joe takes a kind of shine to Ox and spends a lot of time talking and talking and talking and talking at him. And eventually Ox is pulled into this family and into their dynamics, and that is when he finds out that they have a secret, and their secret is that they are werewolves. And yeah, there's a lot of intensely gay angst, and I love it. Now, seeing as I have just mentioned my love Olivia Blake, let's just look at her newest book. This is Masters of Death, and it is an urban fantasy paranormal. Honestly, the fact that Olivia Blake just spends her time wandering in and out of whatever genre she pleases makes me really, really happy, because she seems to be picking all of my favourite genres, like horror, dark academia, urban fantasy. I'm really, really, really hoping that she tries her hand at straight up fantasy at some point. And this is, of course, the Waterstones exclusive Sprayed Edges edition, and it has beautiful end pages, which are just really serving a lot of things, including questions. So this one is about Viola. She is an estate agent, and she is trying to sell a massive, stunning old mansion, except that in this massive, stunning mansion there is a poltergeist, and it is causing her a lot of problems. It is making it so that nobody wants to buy this mansion, and she really, really needs to get it off her hands. So she enlists the help of Fox, who is a medium and just happens to be the grandson of Death. Except the thing that Viola doesn't know about Fox is that he is a fraud. He is not in fact a medium. He cannot talk to dead things. He just kind of says that he can. But when Fox goes to this house with the intention of doing the usual thing that he does for a job, he discovers that it's a little bit more complicated than anything he's encountered previously, and that they now might be in a lot of trouble. But the thing that got me really, really hyped up for it was the list of characters that they enlist to help them, which includes a demonic personal trainer, a sharp-voiced angel, and a love-stricken reaper. I am hoping that this falls under that category of really awesome, tongue-in-cheek, really dry urban fantasy books that I love. But realistically, Olivia Blake hasn't let me down yet, so I'm really salty because I couldn't actually put that book away because it lives downstairs. The intention was there. Now, next that we are into thoroughly ghostly territory, I'm going to show you the next book that I have, which was also on my most anticipated list of the year. A book which I am practically weeing myself with excitement about now that it is finally in my hands. This is The Bone Season by Samantha Shannon, the revised 10th anniversary edition. Once again, it is a Waterstones exclusive edition, so it is signed, and it also has a bound-in letter from the author at the back, which explains why Samantha Shannon wanted to revise this book. So if you didn't know about this one, essentially Samantha Shannon wrote this book 10 years ago when she was much, much younger. She was not out at the time. She didn't feel that she was very far forward in her feminism at the time, and she wasn't as good, in her own words, as a writer as she is now. Now that she has the experience of having written 4 other books in this series, on top of writing Priory and of course A Day of Fallen Night, which are both massive tomes which required a very different writing style, she desperately wanted to go back to the original Bone Season book and make it the best that it could be. The complaints that I've heard from people when they're starting the Bone Season are that it's quite info dumpy, that Paige is a little bit anti-feminist in a few places, and that there are some things that feel kind of rushed and not very well explained or are just plain confusing. And Samantha Shannon saw all of those things and wanted to fix them, and her publishers let her do that. So the 10th anniversary of the Bone Season is completely revised, and in fact there are new characters as well as like new timelines and new descriptions for things. And the end of this book has so many notes and character lists, and also sketches of how some of the things work in this book, because this book is essentially a book about ghosts and mediums. And I am super excited to be able to go back to this world and to read this version. All of the other books in the series will be getting some smaller revisions done to them, and there will be an entire set of new paperbacks which will match this hardback, although I believe this is the only one in the series that's going to be republished in a hardback form. And I haven't showed this to you guys yet, but I was lucky enough to get a proof of the Bone Season revised edition, and I took it to a book event that Samantha Shannon was doing with C.L. Clarke, and I took this with me to get signed, and Samantha was extremely excited because it was the first proof of this that she had signed, and so she put a little extra note on it to say that it was the first arc of this that she had signed, and she told me to keep it for when she's dead because hopefully it will be worth a lot of money. I didn't want to break it to her that I live in the chronic illness world, so probably I'm going to go long before she does, but maybe I can leave it to a nice cat or dog home who can then auction it off. So if you have never heard of the Bone Season series before, or were waiting for the 10th anniversary edition copy to come out, then let me tell you a little bit about it. This one is set in 2059, and it's kind of a alternative history also, because it rewrites the history of our world for about 2 centuries, I think, where in a totalitarian government called the Scion have had complete control of the whole world, really. Paige's father works for the Scion, and Paige by day is a bartender and pretty much nothing else. She's a university dropout. She's been a bit of a disappointment to her dad, really. But by night, Paige actually works in the criminal underworld, because the thing that the Scion want the least is for psychics to be able to band together. Scion believe that to be psychic, to be able to talk to ghosts and to manipulate them, is otherworldly, unholy, unclean, all of those good things, and they pretty much throw any psychic that they find in jail or eradicate them immediately. So Paige in this underworld gang by night really has to keep herself quiet, keep herself hidden, but then one day on the way home to visit her dad, something happens to her in a train carriage which forces her to use her gifts and forces her to out herself, and then she has to go on the run. I am delighted to have this in my hands so that I can start a reread of this series and finish it off with all of Samantha's new revised editions. I love that so far in this video we've basically just had me telling you about all my favourite things. Like, we've had all of my favourite authors and my favourite series. You're welcome for this extremely excitable version of me. Next up, let's just stay on the ghostly theme and talk about a biography which I have, which is something that I really never usually buy. You guys know that I do not usually read biographies. I read memoirs, a lot of true crime memoirs, a lot of family exploration memoirs. Sometimes those two things are the same thing. But I don't read a lot of biographies because I prefer to read about people from their own point of view. However, I was book shopping with my lovely friend Jill and we spotted this one. This is Shirley Jackson, A Rather Haunted Life by Ruth Franklin, and it has apparently won a few pretty prestigious biography awards, and I know this because, as with any other memoir or true crime or biography, I guess, that I pick up, I did a little bit of research in the shop before I bought it, because just because something says that it is the authority on a thing does not mean that it actually is the authority. And the reviews for this one were off the chart. I have a quite tumultuous relationship with Shirley Jackson's actual writing. I absolutely love some of her stuff and I absolutely hate some of her stuff. Like, I am not The Haunting of Hill House the book girly, I am a Haunting of Hill House the series girly, which by the way is one of my creepy comfort watches. But Shirley Jackson as a person I am fascinated with, because she suffered from some really complicated mental health problems, including agoraphobia, which is something I went through myself when I was a teenager. And Shirley Jackson, like a few of the other authors who I have read biographies of, had a very strange life. Like, a lot of really weird things happened to Shirley Jackson. So I'm very excited to read this one. And also, just as a side note, because I like to serve you guys what you want, are you ready for this? So satisfying. Now, on the subject of this video only containing my favourite authors, we have got Thornhedge by T. Kingfisher. Look, it how tiny this is. I was so sad when this came in and it was so little. I knew it was a novella, but I mean, how many pages is this? It's only 125 pages long, and I really was hoping that we would get a slightly meatier offering, because her last couple of books have been on the slimmer side, and I was hoping that we would move a little bit closer to like the size that the Twisted Ones was, which is more in the like 350 page range. But this one is more along the lines of Nettle and Bone than it is the Twisted Ones. This is a fairy tale retelling of Sleeping Beauty, except it's kind of not. This one is about toadling. On the day that she was born, she was stolen by fairies and taken away to the fairy world. But this wasn't actually something which was sad for her. She had a great life with the fairies and she really never wanted to leave, except in exchange for this great life they asked her if she could do one favour for them, and they sent her back to the mortal realm. All they said that they wanted was for Toadling to go and give a blessing to a newborn child. That was it. That was the whole job. And centuries later, she is still there. She is still in that tower. She is still behind that thorn hedge, and she is absolutely determined that the prince that she has just spotted on the other side of that hedge is going to stay right there and no further, otherwise bad things are going to happen to him. It sounds great, right? But it also sounds very sad. Like, Toadling is very sad in the first page of this book. But let's be honest, because this one is so short, I'm probably just going to read it next month. A subscription box that I am terrifically excited for is the one that brought me this. This is Silver Nitrate by Silvia Moreno Garcia. It is Silvia Moreno Garcia's most recent book. The original cover looks like this, and don't get me wrong, I absolutely love it. I love the red tones, but this is just very freaking cool, and it has these sprayed edges and also these end papers and this foiling under the cover. On the back says "Follow me into the night," which, I mean, yeah, okay, I will. So this is the first in a quarterly horror subscription from Illumicrate. It is called Evernight. This was their July pick. And yes, that is how long some of the books have been sitting on this pile. So this one is about Montserrat. She is a very talented sound editor, but she's finding it absolutely impossible to break into the world of cinema in 90s Mexico City because it is such a male-dominated industry. There's just absolutely no way for her to get her foot in the door to prove that she's good enough. It's just assumed that she is not. Montserrat's best friend, however, is Tristan. He is a soap opera star and she might as well not exist to him in a few different ways. All of them romantic, much to her chagrin. But one day Tristan comes to her extremely excited because the guy who has moved in next door to him is a cult horror director. And in making friends with this guy, Tristan has discovered that he has in his possession something which he believes could change their entire lives. He has an unfinished movie that he would like them to help him shoot the remaining scenes for. A movie which is shot on volatile silver nitrate. But as Montserrat starts helping with the filming process, she feels like she's being followed. She feels like there is a dark presence that's always just around the corner. The end of the blurb says, the closer they come to unravelling the mystery of the film and the obscure occultist who once roamed Mexico City, the closer Montserrat and Tristan come to learning that sorcerers and magic are not only the stuff of movies. I am so super excited for this one. It may very well make it onto my Burr TBRs. Honestly, I just want to sit and play with it for a while longer. This book that I picked up was entirely based on the cover. I spotted this one and it absolutely drew me in. It's the second book that I've picked up recently that's had like a scratched out face on the cover. The other one is Penance, and I don't know, but there's something about that, about the willingness to scratch somebody's face out of a picture but still keep that picture, which appeals to me. Like, I want to understand why that person did that. And so I ended up reading the blurb and then I was like, oh no, I'm stuck. I have to take this one with me now. This one is Calla by Colin Walsh. Honestly, I genuinely think that the designers did such a perfect job with this book. I am so intrigued. And this one is set in a little seaside town called Kinloch in Ireland, and it follows a group of people who have come back to this small town, which is, you know, a thing that I love in thrillers. Ellen has come back to this town for her father's wedding, albeit extremely reluctantly, with her arm pushed firmly up her back. Joe is actually quite a successful musician who is moving back to this small town for reasons unknown at the start of this book. And then we have Mosh, who has never left this town, who has worked in his mother's, I think it's a cafe, for like his entire life, too terrified to leave. And it is about Calla, because when they were kids, their best friend Calla was kind of the person who led their group. Everything that they did was based on ideas that she had. They followed her everywhere, and then one day she went missing and they never ever found her. They never ever found a body. They don't know what happened to her, and it tore this tiny town apart. But now, just as coincidence, when all of these three people are back together again, some bones are found in the woods, and all three of them know with absolute certainty that they are Calla's bones, and that they are going to find out once and for all what happened to her, and that maybe Calla hasn't quite let them go yet. Now, don't get me wrong, there is a little part of me that is a tiny bit worried, because I think this one does sort of have the potential to have Manic Pixie Dream Girl vibes in Calla, like she's this dead girl who everybody was obsessed with. So I'm a little bit concerned, but I am hoping that the vibes are actually very different once I get into this, because the first couple of pages of writing just sold me in the shop. I couldn't put it back down. I love me a complicated small town thriller. What can I say? I'm a sucker for my favourite tropes. Next up, I have got a proof that was sent to me from the lovely people at Book Break. This is Divine Might by Natalie Haynes. It is her latest non-fiction book about Greek mythology. The last one was Pandora's Jar, and of course she most recently brought out Stoneblind, which was fiction. And now there is this one, which is her kind of essential take on the Greek goddesses that we know and love, or at least we think we know and we love, because a lot of the time what we know was written by men. And so this is, as with all of Natalie Haynes' other work, a intensely feminist look at these Greek myths and at how we have been served them at different times throughout history. I'm really looking forward to this one because I have a couple of questions about the way that Natalie Haynes views these myths, and I'm really hoping that they're answered in this one. And in fact, some of those questions she does go into in the introduction of this before we even get into the chapters about each individual goddess. So again, I will report back. I am liable to have opinions. And then finally, kind of along the lines of that one, I have this book. This is Excavations by Kate Myers. It was sent to me from the publisher, and I am so glad that it was. I have read the first 2 pages of this out to so many people since I got it. So this one is about a group of 4 women who are all on an archaeological dig. They all come from very different backgrounds and disciplines, but archaeology is their passion, and none of them really like each other. They're not really each other's people, and they haven't put a lot of effort over the years into getting to know each other. But when they are digging, they find an artifact that technically shouldn't exist. That thing should not exist in that period, in that place. And yet when they find this, the man who is running the dig decides that he wants to cover it up. He doesn't want anybody to know that they have found this. He doesn't want them to publish the research. He just wants them to pretend that it did not happen. And the thing is, he kind of has the power to do that because he is running the dig, and he's also in charge of any of the artifacts that they dig out of the ground. And so together the 4 of them kind of have to band together against all odds to try and stop this research from being completely buried. And again, it also asks the question of who gets to write history, what men want out of history versus what women want when they find things. It's described as being like really fun and really playful and really tongue-in-cheek, and that's definitely what I got from it. In fact, what I got from it wasn't tongue-in-cheek. What I got from it was deep and abiding sarcasm, and I loved it. I laughed so many times in the first couple of pages of this book that I had to try and not put it on my TBR immediately. It really almost bumped other things out of the way. So yeah, expect also to see this one in a tops and bottoms near you very soon. So that is it, guys. That is everything for my first book haul in quite a while. And as usual, there was to be found many different genres and many, many different things that Leanne likes. And so many things that I just want to read right now. I don't want to wait. Yeah, there is still a tiny pile of books on this desk. I kind of ran out of steam with the putting them away, but I'll get back to it, I promise. In 2 to 6 business days. So if you guys have got this far through the video, then please leave me the map emoji down below, because we have been all over the genre map in this video. And if you have read any of the books that I've talked about here today and loved them or hated them, then tell me your opinion down below, because you know that I do like me an opinion. And if you have anything to recommend to me based on any of the things that I've picked up here today, then please also do that, because your girl's library's got a few holes in it these days. If you are new to the channel and you would like to see what I think of these and stick around for a tops and bottoms, then please hit that subscribe button down below. And if you have enjoyed this video, please hit that thumbs up, because it really does help my channel. And I will speak to you guys really soon. Bye!